Hi, I'm David Penn, research analyst with Finovate. We're here at Finovate Europe 2022, and I'm fortunately talking with Jeremy Balkin. Good to see you again.
David, it's always great to see you. And great to be back in person.
It's really, we're just talking. It's been a couple of years, so it's really great to see you. How's your conference been so far?
Oh, it's been amazing. It's great to be back. After, I think the way Finovate's adapted over the last few years, being sort of going all remote, all virtual, but keeping the community alive, and now coming back to do it in person. I wasn't going to miss this for anything. Yeah. And seeing so many old friends and colleagues, and it's just great to be here.
Oh, fantastic. Well, speaking of friends and colleagues, you're fresh off a conversation on stage with Dr. Louise Beaumont, who's both friend and a colleague.
She sure is.
Could you share maybe a few of the takeaways from your discussion with her?
Yeah, well, firstly, it was great to actually finally meet Louise in person. We've spent a lot of time on Zoom, but now we can finally meet in person, which is fantastic. And I think the sort of the thesis was around, why we're so bullish this region after the pretty notable investments we've made. I've been in the JP Morgan for a year and a month, and it's been an incredible opportunity to be part of sort of a front row seat to some of the investment activity we're making in this region, both in payments and broadly in the rest of the sort of traditional banking for the rest of the firm.
Sure.
And I think one of the things she was very keen to ask about was like, why Europe? Because we always think about in Europe or in London about the opportunities are in Asia, and here you are so bullish on the region. And I think it was a very valid question. And I said, don't be so hard on yourself, because I think this is an amazing region where it's so diverse. There's a misconception amongst many that sort of you think United States of America, you think the United States of Europe, and it couldn't be a bigger misconception, because Europe, you have unique countries and cultures, languages. Sure, you have a common currency, but you still have local currencies in parts. So the ability for FinTech and payment tech and technology to sort of go beyond legacy and go across borders. And of course, payments are borderless by nature.
Right.
You've seen a really progressive sort of regulatory posture here with open banking, which I think is fostering competition. It's a better customer experience, whether you're a consumer or an enterprise or a business or anything in between. We just see a huge opportunity here, and we think the market's fragmented. We think we can play a role through partnership with FinTech and payment tech companies. And we're just excited to be here. I spend a week every month here in the region, and I have done for the last year. And we got a ton of roadmap still to go.
Right.
And that's why it's also great to be here, because you've got so many friends on the one hand to catch up with, and on the other hand, it's those serendipitous conversations you have in the expo halls or in the coffee carts and things like that to meet those companies and those emerging entrepreneurs who maybe don't have the same opportunities to meet the institutions or the sources of capital to tell their story. And it's been a very, very good use of time.
Yeah, that's interesting. And I really appreciate the point that you made about Europe almost being a little overlooked. It seemed like there was a moment there when open banking was first getting going that the spotlight sort of shifted and we were paying a lot of attention to Europe, but it seemed like the attention span sort of just to fade fairly quickly. And it's really interesting to hear you talk about how that's a major, major mistake.
Yeah, and I also think something that's very humbling as an Australian, but who works in the US, sort of bring a global perspective, because Australia is part of the Asia Pacific, so I've had a sort of a front row seat to see the rise of sort of Asia Pacific as a region over the sort of an economic development perspective of the last sort of 20 or 30 years. But at the same time, when you think about the last decade, we've seen $1.5 trillion with a T, $1.5 trillion of investments across all FinTech, whether it's sort of full-scale acquisition or investment over the last decade. And what's emerged of that, I think anyone watching this or anyone in the audience, if you were to say sort of name 3 FinTechs of the thousands, but like the 3 that you remember that have really grown and become scalable and significant, they're all payments companies. And chances are they were founded by a European-born entrepreneur. And a lot of those companies have come to the US and been very successful. So I think, again, don't be so hard on yourself. This is a very interesting region, amazing talent, amazing technology. Payments are borderless, technology is borderless, it's scalable, it levels the playing field. That's why we're very bullish, and we want to continue to support entrepreneurs. We're doing amazing things in payments here in the region.
Yeah, very interesting. I remember one of the investment panels yesterday talked about payments as the gift that keeps on giving.
I love that. We say payments are eating the world, but I love payments as the gift. That's a good one.
Excellent, excellent. One of the things I also wanted to talk with you were about some of the things that you think going forward, that banks, fintechs, financial service companies in general should probably be keeping front of mind when it comes to potentially disruptive technologies that might be coming their way. What are some of your thoughts around that?
Well, I think payments are the tip of the spear for financial services, because payments, historically has been a sort of a sleepy part of financial services. Now it's the most exciting. And I think it's absolutely the tip of the spear as it relates to our industry. I think that's important because it attracts talent. especially diverse talent, tech talent outside of banking that wants to come in because payments are the tip of the spear. I love that analogy because I believe it's true. Yeah. It's borderless, it's global by nature, it's moving at lightning speed. So again, I think I'm biased, but I really do believe payments is the place to be in financial services. So if you think about what are we learning, what are we seeing, is I think those sort of incumbent institutions, or organizations that have payment capabilities will be the winners, in addition to sort of traditional banking services. And I think if you don't have payment capabilities, you're probably going to be on the wrong side of history. But at the same time, when you think about FinTech and payment tech, and being at the face of change and being at the coalface and moving this industry forward, empowered by open banking and other sort of a progressive posture to foster that growth, I think that's where partnership is so important. And I think, again, whether it's through acquisition, through partnership, through talent attraction, retention, building new businesses, agile ways of working, I think there's so much that the incumbent institutions can learn from FinTech, especially in this region. And again, I think it's also not a surprise here in London, you see the growth of the neobanks. Like, why are millions of consumers, particularly younger consumers, trusting their livelihoods with an app? And I think that's both remarkable and absurd at the same time. But fundamentally, it's because the younger consumer tends to trust technology, they tend to live in their phone, and so therefore financial services has to adapt to that. I think we've been, as a firm, we built Chase UK, we launched that in the last few months. It's been really successful since launching. A lot of sort of legacy organizations or traditional banks are probably withdrawing from that space, which I think is also interesting. At the same time, continuing to support the growth of the FinTech and the neobank space, because I think it's pushing our industry collectively forward. Right. I think that's why it's so healthy. I mean, just in the expo hall here today, I mean, there's just a ton of these sort of true believers that are really doing a huge service to not only financial services as a whole, but also I think to customers, because they've given more choice. And I think choice is a good thing.
Absolutely. I thought maybe to wrap up, we could touch on something that you just sort of hinted at, which is some of the conditions of legacy banks and incumbents. And I'm curious, what is your thinking in terms of ways that institutions can sort of avoid the traps inherent in a lot of legacy thinking and really start to develop that culture of innovation that's enduring?
Well, it's a tough question, David, because there's many ways to answer it, and it's horses for courses, as we'd say in Australia. And I think one thing my father always used to say to me as a kid growing up, but I think I've seen it more and more true as I've gone through my career. You always got to ask, what's the problem you're trying to solve? And the second is, you sort of got to divide up the camps between the sort of the producer and the consumer. And if you think about any organization, any industry, you've got the sort of the hunters and the farmers, right? You need both. And I think most organizations are not nearly as complicated as we probably would like it to believe. Really? And I think those that have become too complicated are seeing the obstacles that creates in an agile, fast-paced, cloud-enabled, sort of flat organizational structure world, where those companies that have those attributes of just going like exponential, and everyone else is flatlining or declining in real terms. So I think that's how I think about things, and I think that's why we want to partner with companies that have those characteristics: cloud-enabled, flat hierarchies, technology first, customer-centric first, quick delivery cycles. Good. That improves how we do business, but also we can help them improve how they do business because they can serve more customers. And in the payment space, that's, again, it's the tip of the spear. Right. So that's why we're so excited.
No, very interesting stuff.
It's great to see you again, David.
Yes, fantastic to see you. Thanks for spending a little bit of time talking with us
Always. It's great to be here. Thank you.
Excellent. And thank you for joining us as well.
Thank you.